Hello, my name is Lisa Shea, and this video is the third in a series that the Blackstone Valley Art Association made in October 2021 about the use of foam core to make 3D sculptures. So you can see a number of the 3D sculptures on the screen here. This one here that we're looking at is a pumpkin that was done by Marcia. The black foam core is what the base of the sculpture is, and then some of the pieces were done with the black foam core and then spray painted with green spray paint to add some additional color to them. The method for creating the base for that one is the notch method, where we cut little notches in the base of the pumpkin, and then we cut matching notches in the two rectangles that we used as the supporting base, and they just fit together nicely, and that creates a way to hold them upright. And you can see the same sort of notch structure in the tree on the right hand side, where I cut a notch in the base of the tree, I cut a notch in the base of the support, and then they just fit together, and that helps hold something upright. So what we're going to do in this particular video is do a flying dragon that's held up on a base. So this helps to show you how to do things that are flying in the air or suspended in the air, and how to create the base that holds it up. So the supplies that you need for that are the foam core. You can see the stack of foam core on the left hand side. You can get that at Amazon or most crafting stores. And then a pencil and a sharpener, X-Acto blades, which are over on the far right, a cutting board so that you don't cut whatever surface that you're cutting on, which you can see next to the laptop over there, and then a glue gun, which is on the far right, the white thing. Glue guns are good for foam because they heat quickly and then dry very quickly, so you only have to hold them in place for a moment or two before they dry and aren't securely attached. So I also want to thank the Massachusetts Cultural Council and the Uxbridge Cultural Council for supporting our workshops. We do these at the Uxbridge Gallery in Uxbridge, Massachusetts, and they are open to the public. So I am going to draw my dragon shape right now, which is a flat suspended dragon, and now I'm going to cut it with an X-Acto blade. So X-Acto blades come in a variety of shapes and sizes, and most X-Acto blades have a very thin, like a pencil style of holding area. And pencil style ones are good when you're working with very thin cardboard or paper or other things that you can cut through easily. But I find when working with foam core, which is quite thick, as you can see with the effort I'm trying to drag through it, that I prefer an X-Acto blade that has a nice round steady gripping area, because I really have to dig in, and often I have to go through a piece multiple times to get all the way down through the bottom layer of cardboard. Because the way foam core is set up, there's a top layer of cardboard, there's a middle section of cells, we'll call it the cells of the foam, and then a bottom layer of cardboard. And when you're cutting through, it's often hard to get through all three layers on one pass, so it's better to do one pass to get through most of it, and then a second pass to get through the rest of it. You want to be really careful not to cut toward any fingers or body parts. Because of my arm strength, I often have to cut toward my stomach because I can't pull hard enough left to right. I have to pull toward me. But you want to be really careful when you do that, that you ease up as you get towards the edge of the foam core, because when you are pulling hard to get through the thick foam core area, and then it reaches the end, now there's no resistance anymore, and your hand's going to move much faster, and then of course it could accidentally fly and impale yourself. So you want to be careful that if you pull strongly in the middle area, that you ease up and pull much gentler as you get toward the edge part. It's also good to do the cutting in sections, so work on a little section and then get that piece free, and then another little section and get that piece free, and that makes it easier to get into the angles that you need. In general though, if you look at the designs that we have out on the table, it's good to do general non-detailed designs, we'll say it that way. You can make big swoopy shapes with an X-Acto blade through something that's thick, but it's really hard to do tiny little detailed tendrils. The little person on the cat that I did is probably the finest level of detail that one could manage with an X-Acto blade through thick foam core, in part because the foam is made up of cells, and each of those cells has a structure, and you can't cut any finer than the dimension of the cell that you're working on. Alright, so that is the top of the dragon, his head, and then the wings. And again, this is a top-down view of the dragon. So we are looking at him as if we were flying over him and seeing him fly over, or I suppose it could be either way. You could be on top of the dragon looking down at him, or you could be underneath the dragon looking up at his stomach. So now I'm working on the inner part of the wings, and I'm doing just little sections at a time. So I am going to be quiet now as I finish the rest of the cutting of his body, and then I will come back when we get to the gluing of the base part. Alright, so now I have the base of the dragon cut out. So you can see that it looks like a silhouette of a dragon. And now I'm going to want to try to mount it on something so that it's up in the air with a minimal amount of substance holding it up. And here I'm testing to see if it will balance on just a thin edge of a foam core, and it is balanceable. So that means that I can just cut a vertical piece out of the foam core and then glue the dragon to the top of that vertical piece to get it to balance. And I want to have that vertical piece be as slender as possible so that it doesn't interfere with a person seeing the dragon. So I'm cutting a thin, but I mean, you also don't want it so thin that it's going to fold and break. So a reasonably thin, but still sturdy enough piece. So there's going to be one piece that goes underneath the dragon's body, and then the vertical piece that's going to go down to the ground, and then you have a piece that goes on the ground, and you need the piece on the ground to be long enough to counterbalance the weight of the dragon body so that it can't fall forward or backwards or any of that kind of stuff. So you want the two of them to be matched. You want, in general, the length of the base piece to be about the same length as the dragon body is, and then it's as high as it can be, because I mean this foam core only comes in a certain length. And then the piece that goes underneath the dragon that's glued to the dragon should be about the same length as the dragon, again, to give it as much surface area and balance area. So you'll see once I get this piece free how we've got the length of the dragon, we've got the vertical piece to have it up off the ground, and then the length of the base area. And again, if you wanted to use spray paint, you could spray paint the ground green. You know, the rest of it black is probably the best color so that it doesn't get in the way. So that's the base part. Alright, so next I'm going to make the little cross part that's going to hold this base up. And again, if you look at the tree, or if you think about the pumpkin that we just did, the way to make a nice solid support is to cut a notch in the base of the standing part, and then cut a notch in the top of the structure, the base cross piece, and the two of those fit together. So I'm making a little rectangle, and then I'm going to put a notch in that rectangle. I'm going to put a notch in the standing base, and the two of those should fit together and be able to create a four-way support. So now I'm making the little notch in this base, and that will be in the top of the base. And then I will make a matching notch in the bottom of the standing support. And you want those notches to be the thickness of the foam core, because the two pieces of foam core need to fit into each other to seat properly. So making the little notch there, I'm checking to make sure that it's the right thickness. And now I will make a matching notch in the base of the foam core, in the structure, the standing structure. Okay, so now that I've got the two notches cut, I simply seat the two notches together. That creates a standing base, and now I will be able to put the dragon on top, and I will shortly glue the dragon to that top area. Just to switch direction for a second, this is Marcia's swan that she made. You can see that she's got the eye and the wings from different pieces, so that those all work together, and she's got this glued to a base piece to help it stand up, so that you can do all sorts of different shapes and designs with the foam core. So what I'm doing over on the right off screen is putting a stripe of glue along the top of the support structure, so that there is glue the entire length of that top area, because that way when I come back over to my work area, I can lay the dragon carefully down on the top of the support area and get it to balance in the center line of his body will stay. And the wings being long enough are going to provide a counterbalance on the left and right. So this is the support piece that I've made with its little cross base. The top is now completely covered with hot glue, and I'm going to seat the dragon down into that hot glue and try to make sure that it is as balanced as possible left to right. And hot glue cools and dries nice and quickly, so you really don't have to hold it for very long before it is going to seat well. And there's a bit of a lean to the base right now, but I can fix that by just adding a little piece of cardboard or foam core into the base to give it an extra little bit of shim in essence in there. But my main concern right now is just getting that dragon to dry so that it stays still. And I'm going to stuff a little piece of extra foam core in the base to get it to stand a little more straight. All right, and now I just want to show you all the different sides of Marcia's swan so that you can see how this is constructed. She made this out of multiple pieces of foam core, and she made a little base behind it. So she just has a circle bottom, which she then glued to a vertical piece, and then glued that to the back of the swan, and that way the swan stands nice and sturdy. And you can see the different layers of how she put this together. I don't have the video from the laptop, unfortunately for you. We were doing a live Zoom session at the time, so we were showing it to the people in the Zoom session from that direction, and then also from this cell phone direction. So we've got the swan, we've got the dragon that I constructed, so you can see how it looks like a flying dragon from the top, or you can look at it from the bottom. And again, I'm just doing sample designs, but you can do designs in any direction that you want, any kinds of dragons, types of birds, types of pumpkins, types of cats. There's all sorts of things you can do with foam core. It's fairly inexpensive, and if you're working with people with mobility issues, I'd be cautious with the X-Acto blades. I would help them with the X-Acto blades, but they could do all the drawing parts, and then someone who's more able to use the X-Acto blade safely can do the X-Acto blade part, and then they can do the connecting parts. And if you don't have a hot glue gun, then that's fine. You just use the notch method for connecting things together. Or you could use tape if you really had to. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to do these things. So let me know if you have any questions for the Blackstone Valley Art Association. Thank you to the Massachusetts Cultural Council and the Uxbridge Cultural Council for supporting our projects. Well, thank you and have a wonderful week.